So many people say to me, Alex, what do I have to hide? So what if they're setting up a tyranny? I go work my job. I'm happy with the breadcrumbs you were just mentioning, George. What they don't understand is serial killers grab women out of parking lots who just went to their job and were nice people. Folks think that just because they're nice and keep their head down, that tyrants are going to leave them alone. But we know from the Communist Chinese and the Soviet Russians and the Nazis and all of it that that's not how this works. That's not how the real world operates. Good people have to get together and demand that our basic freedoms be left intact. I mean, when the government is openly trying to put this stuff in place, it isn't a red flag. It isn't a pistol shot in the air. It isn't even 2 + 2 = 4. It is a clear message of that we are all in grave danger because we've been asleep at the switch and we've let incredibly corrupt interests take control of our society.
And you know, Alex, this is a game of boredom and greed. These are people who have so much money already. It's unbelievable. I mean, if people knew the resources that they have, but they're bored and they want more, and it's a game.
You just said it. The globalists want a technocracy. They want a worldwide computerized system that instantly fines and taxes and fees and tracks everybody. And the globalists in all their public documents abhor due process. Because how are they going to have a computer give you a red light ticket if it isn't an officer following law and due process with a summons, with a citation, where you get your day in court? How are they going to have a cashless society where they can just turn off your card or your face scan if you haven't played ball? The system is waging war against due process. Due process is all of our birthright. Police officers, military, everybody who's being asked to carry out this tyranny. It's your birthright that's being attacked as well. But the message I want to give people is this is bigger than Obama, bigger than Bush, bigger than Bill Clinton. They're just puppets that read off teleprompters by and large. This is about a global elite worldwide establishing standardized systems of tyranny and overthrowing checks and balances and basic protections of the population. And it's outrageously transparent. So for all intents and purposes, we're already under martial law. When the Congress is told, you don't matter, the UN gives us orders now when we launch wars. When the head of the CIA says, I'm operating domestically, which itself is illegal on record, and we're spying on you, which is illegal without warrants, and you don't have a Bill of Rights anymore, that is flaunting it in our face, an attempt to break our will, and all of this is martial law. All martial law means, in Encyclopedia Britannica, is that normal checks and balances and laws are suspended, and there is no habeas corpus, and military-style rule is put in place. And just as you mentioned before the break, Secretary of Defense is over all of this, is over natural resources, is over the Congress. Under this system, Congress is made completely ceremonial. That's why 2 weeks ago, the Secretary of Defense was able to get up in front of Congress, and Senator Sessions kept saying over and over again, you know Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 says we give you the order for war. We fund the war. We commission the officers. Please say that you come to Congress for authorization for war. And Panetta 5 times said, no, we go to the UN now. You aren't over that. And he said, but you will come to us. And he said, no, we don't come to you anymore. I mean, this is outrageous, open treason against this country. And when I saw that video, it had been on a Tuesday evening in Congress.
You couldn't believe it, could you?
I'm sorry?
You couldn't believe it, could you?
I couldn't believe it. The senators, when the Secretary of Defense and the generals and the Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman were telling them this, Senator Sessions said, I can't breathe. And he was actually having trouble talking. But what does Congress expect? They allowed a war against Libya last year. I'm not saying Gaddafi's a good guy.
No, of course
but they
not.
put al-Qaeda in charge. Al-Qaeda just blew up a bunch of military bases and police bases in Syria last week. The UN and the globalists are putting Al-Qaeda in charge everywhere. I mean, has it ever been more obvious, George?
And we're starting peace talks with the Taliban in Afghanistan, the people we threw out. And, of course, they walked away from the table because they're not happy with things. What is this?
It's total madness, because I tend to look at it as America versus Al-Qaeda, or America versus Russia, or America versus Assad. But it's not like that. It's these global cutthroat institutions like Goldman Sachs. One of their own high-level executives quit last week and said, we talk about our employees, we talk about our customers as scum, we call them Muppets, we call them idiots, we talk about how are we going to rip them off. And Goldman Sachs is right at the top of the pyramid. And here's one of their own executives saying that it's an attitude of total predatory dishonor. And we've just gotten in a position in America, which is completely un-American view when you compare it to our history, of just trusting the system and doing whatever the system says, doing whatever the people in authority say. Well, in the American system, we're the authority. We're the sovereigns. It's we the people. And what enshrines that is the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence. And when anybody attacks those sacred documents and those systems of due process and those firewalls against tyranny, they are tyrants. And that's not just a word. What is a tyrant? It is a despot who seeks to consolidate power and to dominate the innocents. Tyrants are the plague.
I'm convinced, Alex, that when push comes to shove, that Americans would stand up and simply say, enough is enough.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I know that you speak to tens of millions of people every evening. I know that I speak to thousands of people every day, and everywhere, police and military across the board tell me that they are awake and they know what's going on. And they understand the Bill of Rights and Constitution is something of great value. And that is something that really buoys my soul, to know that the globalists may be in control, the major levers, but people within that command structure understand where their duty is, where honor lies, and they understand the Bill of Rights and Constitution is all something that belongs to us and is our greatest possession. And you don't know how important something is until you start to lose it. It's the old song, don't know what you've got until it's gone.
You got that right. Alex, before we take calls next hour, what's new at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com?
We're just doing what you're doing, George. We're here tracking the good that's happening, but also the bad, and separating the wheat from the chaff. But we're just breaking down the legislation, the documents, Europe completely captured by the bankers, the people there being squeezed within an inch of their lives, taxes being raised, all of it being paid to offshore banks. We are just witnessing the strangulation of Europe under the EU bureaucracy that was designed to carry out this consolidation. And we are doing everything we can to alert free humans everywhere against this tyranny, because this tyranny can only flourish when good men and women do nothing and aren't informed.
Good point. Alex Jones with us. We're going to come back in just a moment here on Coast to Coast AM with Alex and with you. We will take a full hour of phone calls. And again, Alex's website's linked up at coasttocoastam.com. Two of the best, two of the biggest, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com. We'll be right back on Coast to Coast AM.